Blakey. No, holding the ball. If this goes through, listen up. Listen up.
Patrick Cripps. Patrick Cripps, 24 matches in season 2023. Paddy Cripps is born on the 18th of March, 95. Played 183 games. I was watching a replay last night, a couple of quarters from different games, and the commentary was talking about these players who had played X amount of games without a final. That was all eliminated in 2023. But I think the story for Cripper right now is the development of his leadership and where it was and where it is and where it's seemingly going to go.
100%. I think if you want to see the Cripps that turns me on, go to finals Cripps. That was a man that was saying to you, he trusts the guys around him.
Yeah.
He's no longer the breadwinner of that midfield. He's the father of that midfield. He's got his little sons, Walshy, Chera, to do the exciting stuff. He's there in that fatherly, supportive role to protect them. The tackles he made in the Brisbane game and really set the standard, even though we lost it. The Melbourne and the Sydney game, he was very pressure-based, particularly towards the back end of the year. We saw him working a lot more deep behind the ball as well, working defensively and really instilling that pressure. You're starting to see the transition. I think it's really interesting, and Peter V nails it. Trent Cotchin copped so much hate when he went from that 40-touch midfielder, right, going back to being the 18-touch winner with 8 tackles and distributing the ball. And for me, forget about your Brisbane 44-goal Cripps. No one cares. Keep it. Watch the highlight reel. I don't care. The Cripps that excites me is the Cripps that's the dad of the midfield. He's a workhorse. He's the best blocker of the ball in the league. He's the best extractor in the league. Giving the ball to his mates, Chera and Walsh and Doc. This is the Cripps, and I think Cripps is due a huge year this year. I think you're going to see him. He really trusted that midfield. Post round 12,
yeah, he did.
You saw a different Cripps. And that Cripps there, he doesn't win Brownlows. He wins flags. And at the end of the day, you want a pretty little statue outside somewhere, you have to win a flag. And Cripps is well on his way. Well on his way.
There was a clear difference. There was a clear lift in his ability to make others around him better for me when I watched him in 2023. 22, he was enormous. Kicked a lot of goals. I think it was a career high for goals kicked in a season. Kicked the 20 goals. Won the Brownlow medal. 2023, he plays the season as the Brownlow medalist. Kicks the 9 goals for the season. But I think he's past that point in his career where he needs to maybe prove to himself or to the external that he belongs amongst the conversation in, who's the best player in the league. I think we're past that now. And now that I see him making others around him better, that for me is a real mature leader. And for me, leadership is empowering those around you to get the best out of themselves. And that's what I think we've started to see for the first time. And then there's also just looks more settled in himself, the way he talks. It's come a long way. It's all these little things. And really, he's a veteran of the team. One of the 2 or 3 veterans that we would call in the team.
Spot on. I mean, you look. My favourite thing about Cripps is that you listen to Fife, and he always talks about he'd give up his Brownlows to win a flag. He'd give up his Brownlows, and Cripps really embraced that role in my heart. That he was no longer the Great White Hope. He was the leader, and it felt like after that bye round and we had that horrible Essendon game, there was really an onus there of Cripps is like, I trust these boys. These boys do it. And people talk, and Marcus makes a good point. People talk about his injuries and always makes me laugh. People bring up the injuries, but this guy is one of the few midfielders in the league today below the age of 30 who was consistently ranked in the top 10 of all inside midfield stats for the last 5 years. And 3 of them years, people have been telling me that he's broken his rib, he's got massive issues. What scares me is if Cripps is fit and he can do that, what the hell do you think he's going to be doing? The numbers are going to be insane.
Well, that is where the management of his year comes to my mind. It would be really enticing to think of him getting to the finals without that type of hindrance. But, if it's not that, it's probably something else once you get to that point. But the point is, I remember when he first started playing, I remember all of his career. And from the moment I watched him play for the first time, I remember saying, oh man, that guy's born to play in grand finals. That's the style of game. It's perfect for him. Especially now that he's learnt the art of when to take on an opponent and when to hand it off. And I think his kicking also improved in the latter stages of the year. A lot of those hit-up kicks around the ground, he started lowering the eyes a bit, which I wanted to point out as well.
My 2 favourite games from Cripps last year, which were the games that the general media didn't give us a chance, were Melbourne, the round 22 and the semi-final. And that's the Cripps I like.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, there was a player called Roy Keane for Man United. There was they were the type of players that turned me on. The guys that went in there and beat up the opposition engine room and said, nah, this is my midfield. He was outgunned in their particularly that round 22 game. Yeah. Melbourne were flying. They had all the pressure numbers. Cripps was sacrificing his game, getting there first, putting the stops on Viney to get the ball first, which allowed the other players to get ball in space. And that's what excited me about watching training before Christmas. You saw that was a big thing. Cripps and Hewitt were really being the protectors of the ball, letting Doc run at the ball with pace, letting Walsh run at the ball with pace, looking Chera. And when the ball is in their hands in space, suddenly you do it. And you get a lot of people, don't you, saying teams win flags and stuff like that. And like my pop used to say, if you want to say something obvious, have kids. Do you know what I mean? That's a good little expression to remember. If you're going to state the obvious, have kids. It'll come in useful. Doesn't work with adults. That is what wins you the flags. A player letting the good players have the ball, because you don't want Chera being in contested possession. You don't want Walsh in contested possession. You want them uncontested. And the best way our team does it, Hewitt gets the ball out, Cripps puts the block on. Cripps gets the ball out, Hewitt puts the block on. The guy we talked about, Pitternack, that's something you didn't see this year because his leg was strapped up. It was held on with sticky tape, but he was doing that a couple of years ago, getting in the way of players, and it was Cripps getting the ball in space. This year, potentially, if we can have Cripps, Hewitt, Pitternack shielding the ball, look out, because Walsh is going to tear a game open. Chera's going to tear a game open, and Doc, we started to see tear games open in the midfield. Suddenly, all that talk, Carlton's midfield is one-dimensional. Carlton's midfield becomes an absolute wrecking ball in the competition. And I don't say this because I'm a Carlton fan or because I'm on Blue Abroad. Carlton's midfield, in its pomp and circumstance, is the best midfield, bar none. No one can hold the torch. We are the Floyd Mayweather of this league. We can't be outgunned. We can't be hit. And that is a big part of it. And Cripps will be the general. And I can't wait to see him lift that cup, because no one deserves that cup more than Cripps.
Yeah, it's the image, isn't it? Yeah. In a world, particularly in a sporting world, where player movement year after year becomes more relevant and more exercised. And, there was a period there where I think it was 2021 where there was the negotiations with the contract, and you look back on it now and, David Teague was obviously coaching at the time. And if you're on the inside, you're watching that ship sink after the ship before that sunk, So fair play for him sticking around, believing, and staying true to himself. And I think it's I do fear what it would have looked like had he not stuck fat. But I'm glad that he did. And I'm glad he set the tone for the rest of them to follow suit. And nothing but gratitude for Patrick Cripps, that's for sure.
You know what? He's broken the Judd Murphy curse. For 160 games, he was the great white up.
Yeah.
He was Cripps or nothing. And thankfully, the coaching staff, the players united, so he didn't end his career like Murphy, a shell of the former player. Judd having to leave the game on a stretcher, a great like that, who's worked his arse off with a midfield that couldn't compete. And now he's going to get to have the fruits of his labour. And when he goes out to play, you can see Judd, his mentor, and Murphy, his great friend. He's living their dream. And now, hopefully, we get 5 years of Cripps specialising in what he does.
Yeah.
And being able to win multiple of these bloody cups. Multiple of these bloody cups.
Born for finals, born for grand finals. That's Patrick Cripps, your 2024 Premiership captain. Let us know how you see his year unfolding in the comments below.